Hey everybody, Jake here from Bearded Gear, and it's first impressions time. This is my Vero Isotope. If you watched my unboxing, you might have seen that the action right out of the box was not the most stellar thing in the world. It was failing to deploy a little bit, and it's broken in a little bit, seems to have gotten a little smoother, but it's still possible to fail on deployment, and it sounds a little gritty inside. So as part of this video, I'm going to disassemble it, as much as I'd frankly prefer not to with a brand new knife. I know some people love to take knives apart right when they get them, and I've had times where I've been that guy, where I just want to take things apart because it makes me feel more connected to them and all that. But I also find that oftentimes knives don't get better when I take them apart and put them back together, unless there's a problem I'm setting out to try to fix. And I don't know. I don't always feel every day lately like I want to get my Torx wrenches out and start working on knives. I just would rather be doing other things a lot of the time. I'd rather be cut testing or hanging out with my kid or hiking, like whatever it may be. But this is one of those times where I feel like I should give that a shot because it shouldn't be this easy to fail. Now, if I'm really focusing, this knife does deploy, and it deploys okay. If I'm middle finger flicking it, it deploys pretty well, but the detent feels a little light and it feels a little gritty in there. So I'm going to go ahead and disassemble it. We're going to see if that gets better. Before I do, let's talk about the other things that I've figured out about this knife so far. I've carried this for really a day and a half, and I've done a little bit of cutting with it, opened some boxes. I have processed a little bit of cardboard with it. Not a ton yet, but some. So first things first. I'm just going to get this off my chest. The pocket clip on the Isotope is the updated version of the pocket clip. So it has gone through a change. It is no longer sticking up on the end. So this point right here has that little table on it, that plateau, if you will. It flattens out rather than just sticking up. And I appreciate that because ergonomically, the clips on all of the other Veros I have ever tried have bothered me in hand. They have been a hot spot. And I've said that in every Vero review I've done so far. That's been my main criticism of the knife, has been the pocket clip. But even though now it doesn't do that anymore, there was a whole other component to my complaints about the pocket clip, and that was how tight they were. So I live in Southern California. I don't wear like thick winter clothes ever, let alone right now in summer. But I just wear pretty normal shorts, I think, and pretty normal jeans. Nothing crazy. And every Vero pocket clip I've ever experienced has been way tighter than I'm okay with. They just don't let the knife slide in and out of pocket nearly easy enough. And some of that may be the tension of how tight they are on the knife, and some of that is definitely how much room there is underneath it. So supposedly this pocket clip got the flat spot up here and got increased clearance underneath. If that's the case, I can't tell that the clearance has increased because this clip is just frankly still way too tight for my liking. Maybe it will break in a little bit. We'll see by the time the full review happens. Maybe just by forcing it into some jeans a whole bunch of times, it'll work better. But the first night that I carried this, the day I unboxed it, my daughter has this art class, and so me and my wife, while my daughter's in art class in that neighborhood, we go and we try a different restaurant every week, and we walk around, and I had this knife in my pocket, and so after we finished eating, I was like, I'm going to take one of my walking spinny flippy videos where I twirl the knife in my hands, and I like to put it in my stories, and I put it in the Vero group. So I was like, I'm going to take one of those videos, right? So I pull out my phone, I'm holding it like I'm about to pull the knife out of my pocket and do the spinny flippy video, and it took me, 20 seconds of trying to get the knife out of my pocket before I abandoned having the phone in my hand, put that back in my pocket, and went and took my other hand to hold the pocket tight, and I had to just work way too hard for way too long to get this knife out of my pocket. And putting it in wasn't easy either. Like, getting this knife into pocket is kind of a chore. And so it was frustrating, and my wife specifically made fun of me, and she's like, if there was a mugger right now, we'd both be dead because you can't even get your knife out of your pocket. And I agree. I think a pocket clip is one of the most important parts of a pocket knife. And I don't know. I was just before this filming my review of the Swish Bowie, and this uses a wire clip. Wire clips are my favorite because they don't look nearly as cool as this pocket clip. This pocket clip looks really cool. And every Vero pocket clip I've ever had has looked really cool. I've been loaned an Impulse and a Synapse, reviewed both of those, and then I've owned an Axon and an Impulse Mini. The reasons why my Axon and my Impulse Mini ultimately got sold and didn't get kept was because of the pocket clip. I just don't find myself wanting to put them in pocket when the pocket clip is so frustrating for me. And yeah, it just, to me, is more important to have a pocket clip work at going in and out of pocket with ease, but still retaining. That's a balance that a lot of knives achieve just fine. It's not like a high bar to jump over, in my opinion. And then it also has to feel good in hand. It can't just poke and prod me like crazy. And this does half of that now, but it still doesn't do the other half. To be totally fair, yesterday I wore really thin shorts. Like, they're literally like hybrid shorts that are board shorts. You can swim in, go in the ocean, whatever, but still have pockets and a button and a zipper and are meant to also just be normal shorts you can wear around. They're hybrid shorts, right? Those are really thin. In those, this was fine. I carried this all day yesterday, went in and out of pocket easily, like any pocket knife should. Today, I'm in not thick shorts, but normal shorts, and again, it's just frustrating to try to get in and out of pocket. So the reality is I won't keep a knife ultimately if I have to be so sensitive to what I'm wearing, like as to whether I'll carry it or not. Like this I could wear in hybrid shorts or maybe in slacks. That's not very often that I wear either of those things. And if I do, I have a lot of knives to carry. So I don't know. It's just, unless this pocket clip like breaks in and loosens up, that's going to be a killer on this knife for me. And I'm going to not keep it. And I should say this as well. I consider Joseph Vero a friend at this point. I've had him on my podcast. We've talked a few times. I love his designs. I love the way his knives come out virtually every single time. I love certain features like the slot for middle finger flicking, the aesthetics. There is so much about his knives that I love, and I like the guy. So I say all this to be in a way constructive. I'm not trying to just poop in his Cheerios, because that's not at all my goal. It's just, as a reviewer, I feel like I should be able to use this media to be open. And I think I have so far in my channel. It's not a thing that I hold back and don't say things when I mean them and when I find them on knives, regardless of where they came from or how they got to me. That's important to me as a reviewer to be able to say those things. I just also want to reiterate, because I know a lot of people are like, well, aren't you friends with Vero? Why are you dumping on his pocket clip so much? It's just frustrating for me, because this is the fixed clip. And for it to still have so much difficulty going in and out of pocket, to me, is just like, oh, I just want it. I just want it to be good. I want it to be better. I know I have also seen my buddy Jason has used like a shim. Like he created a little square of material, the shape of where this mounts onto the knife. And he basically made a small standoff that the clip sits on and then mounts to create a little more space under it. And that seems to have worked. So maybe there will be some aftermarket solution where somebody just makes shims that are really easy to just install under your Vero pocket clip and it makes it stand up taller. I'd love to see that, because I'd use that and it would make me love the knife more. But yeah, to me, the pocket clip, the way it is, unless it breaks in magically and just loosens up and gets easier to put in and take out of pocket, that's going to be a killer for me on this knife. So, rant over on that. What else have I found so far? The knife is, frankly, pretty gorgeous. The hand satin, the hand rub, I love. I think it looks phenomenal. I specifically wanted the hand rub and the black end cut carbon fiber, because now the grain of the carbon fiber and the hand rub just go in the same direction, and I think it looks really, really nice. I think this inlay, it looks very, very nice. I will say the finishing on the titanium to me is not my favorite ever. I just, on the edges, I don't know if I'll even be able to show it, but if you look at where the edges of the titanium are machined, where there's kind of corners and stuff, I just keep finding these little spots where I don't know if it was in the stone washing or what, But rather than it being like a nice, even, uniform stone washing, it kind of looks like in some spots there's just like already snail trails, but they're not ones that I put there. And then in other spots it's not super stone washed. And then on those corners there's little spots where it seems like it just like barely deformed the edge of the titanium. And I don't know, it doesn't feel like pinnacle $500 integral like crown jewel knife model level finishing, if I'm being totally honest. Again, I'm trying to be nitpicky in a somewhat helpful way without sounding like too much of a douche here. But I'm just trying to point out the things that I've honestly noticed so far. The finishing of the titanium is not my favorite ever. I've owned knives that have costed less, and the finishing on the titanium, even if they've had inlays, have just seemed nicer to me. And maybe part of that is just the stone washing process that they did here. Maybe it would have been better if they had blasted it, or I don't know what. But I'm not crazy about the way that it's finished. I will say the inlay fits in quite well, but around the edges of it, the titanium where it meets it, I see more of those little like stone washed dings that like, again, I've had other stone wash knives that just seem more uniform and less like, I don't know. Stone washing, when you think about it, really is like pre-damaging the material, but it's supposed to be really uniform and make it look so like uniform that if you were to then somehow scratch it or scuff it, you wouldn't notice it because everywhere is already covered in tiny scratches and scuffs and stuff. But it doesn't usually like deform the edges in any way. And here, maybe it's just the way it's catching the light or something, but it just, to me, sticks out as being not quite as nice of finishing as I've seen before. But the blade finish is gorgeous. The construction is honestly pretty exciting and cool. There is something about an integral that makes a knife feel more expensive and classier and nicer. The inlay makes this knife look so much nicer than it would if it was just plain tie everywhere, in my opinion. I love that we've still got the V-spot, V-slot, whatever you want to call it. Does make it awesome for middle finger flicking. So there's a lot about this knife that I'm liking, but I'm also just like conflicted at the moment because the action isn't quite right. I'm hoping I can sort that out. But also the clip is not really okay with me yet. And the finishing isn't amazing. And so even though there's some good things, these little things, like this to me, I was, to be fair, also so excited for, because I thought this was finally going to be the Vero that was like, it got the new clip, it's an integral, it's the nicest one he's made yet, and maybe that was like too high of an expectation I put on the knife. But to be fair, this was also his most expensive, like, Halo model to date. It's the nicest knife he's come out with in terms of the type of build and how much it cost. And so I kind of think it's also a little bit fair to hold it to a high standard when it's the most expensive model and has the most like impressive construction, right? And this inlay rather than just a scale. Like, there's things about this knife that are unique to this model, and I don't know. So I guess my first impressions are a little all over the place, to be fair, but just trying to be honest here, and hopefully that feedback is helpful to Vero Engineering and all that. I want Joseph to succeed. Let me say that as well. And even with the clips not being my favorite, even with like little nitpicky things, I found each and every one of his knives that I've reviewed and handled, I've ultimately been able to say with a straight face and mean it that I love his knives. And I think the design is really good, and I appreciate so much about what he does on these. And he's still very new, also, to be fair. And so it's not like he's been doing this for 30 years. Like, this is the first run of a new model. So that's worth considering as well. But I'm going to go ahead and flip the camera down to where you can see my kind of workstation here. And I'm going to go ahead and disassemble this knife, clean it out a little bit. I've got some drivers here. I think this will be all I need because the pivot I can only get to from one side. And I've heard that this integral construction is actually pretty cool and fairly easy to work on. I did also grab, I don't know where I set them, but I've got some magnets. Set them here somewhere. I've heard that that is very helpful for getting like the stop pin out or something. I haven't done this yet, but I'm going to go ahead and disassemble it. It's been a long time since I've disassembled anything with an integral construction, so wish me luck. I hear it's fairly simple. I hope that's true. And hopefully, by disassembling it, cleaning it out a little bit, splashing in some fresh KPL, reassembling it and tuning it, it'll now have a better action. That's what the hope is. Because if it doesn't and the action stays gritty and a little bit limp, then I don't know. I will not be very happy, as you can probably imagine. So we'll see. Let me flip the camera and we'll get to work. All right, so this is my B. Weiss leather work mat. People always ask when I share it or when I show it, so I figured I'd just get that right out of the way. Yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead, take this apart. I think we're working with a T8 pivot, I believe. Let's confirm that. Yep, that's a T8. I'm not gonna touch the lock bar insert. The clip, I think, is a T8 as well, yep. And if I need to take this inlay off, which I doubt I will, that is also a T8. So that's cool. T8's everywhere. I like that. I like only needing to use one tool. This is just a Weehaw driver that I got in like a 6-pack. I think it goes from T6 to like T20 or something, jumping around. So it's like T6, T8, T10, T12, T15, T20, maybe? I don't know. It was a pack that I got on Amazon, and these are nice because you just get good torque on them. I have fancy drivers too, but this is what I grabbed. All right, so let's first, I guess I can frankly probably just keep everything, like there's no scales to come apart. I can probably just take the pivot assembly out, and that should work to get everything I need. So, that was tight. Right, so there's my pivot screw. Don't see, looks like there was a little bit of Loctite on there. All right, it is a D-shaped pivot. So I think what I do next is I take out this like pivot collar. Am I crazy? Is this what I'm supposed to use the magnet on? Let me see, where did I put those magnets? Here they are. That doesn't seem to really be doing anything, does it? Do I push this through the pivot on the other side? I don't know. It's weird. That appears to be steel. These are strong magnets. I also don't want to be like beating on it. What the? I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Let's see if I can. Ooh, there we go. I pushed the pivot through. Okay. Yeah, so this, in typical Vero pivot fashion, also can be tightened and loosened internally. So basically the idea of that is that you can adjust for your own personal balance of how much blade play and drop shuttiness you have versus tightness, and you can take out drop shuttiness. Like, I don't know, you can play with it in that way, which is kind of cool. Let's see what happens here. Maybe now I can pull this sucker out. Oh, it feels like it's coming out a little bit. There, okay. So, interesting. The way this is set up is pretty freaking unique. So basically, yeah, there's the stop pin too. Wild. All right. So yeah, the assembly is fairly simple, but unique because, does that stop pin come out? It's gonna have to if I want the blade to come out. Yeah, there we go. Okay, stop pin is out. So yeah, the way that this all sits in there is definitely unique. The way the bearings are packaged, and you've got these little stainless steel rings, and then this teardrop shaped pivot collar thing. All right, I'm gonna literally just use some tissues because that's what I've got right here. We're gonna clean this out. bearings themselves look clean to me. Alright, let's clean the blade. Yeah, there was definitely some griminess in that spot. It's quite a bit coming off of there, actually. Let me kind of thread this through that hole too. Kind of doing a Q-tip type of cleaning here because I was too lazy to grab a Q-tip. I'm just going to do it like this. Yeah, there's some grime coming out of there for sure. I do have a detent ramp. There's our lock face, detent ball track. Alright, so we're pretty clean in there at the moment. Now this reassembly should be interesting. So what I think I want to do is set these bearings on there first, where they're gonna ultimately go. In fact, let me, before I do that, put some KPL with them. It's possible to use too much KPL, so I'm not going to go crazy here, but nice little drip on each side. Okay, that's where that goes. Interesting. Alright, that's ready. Those are going to ride on there. I can see the track already. Okay, so with that there, I should probably put the blade on next. Oh, that's going to be difficult, isn't it? Yeah, that sucks. Alright, maybe if I set them on here. Try not to grab onto a live blade like an idiot. Oh, you know what? I think these go that way. Yep. Alright, so we're going to do that. Okay. So those are there. Let's put this stop pin in here if I can get that to work. Okay, stop pin's back in. Bearings are still in line. Everything's kind of locked up at the moment, so that's good. It's keeping stuff in place. Now, I'll take a little bit more of this. Put that right there. And then this goes on this side of it. Yep. Put just a tiny bit in here. There goes that. It's kind of funky. Alright. So now I need to get this back up through. I'm going to try to not really adjust this too much. Actually, let me get this nice and cleaned off too, because that is the pivot itself. And that was kind of grimy. Would have been a rookie move to put this back in. Not dialed in. Alright. So that's cleaned off. I do want to put a little KPL on here. Now this is D-shaped, so it needs to go in specifically like that. Good, okay. So that's back in its spot, which means now I need to put this on there. I'm so glad that lined up. Alright, now let's get this back on here. I'm like shaky right now. I don't know what's going on. All right. So before I tighten it, like really tighten it, go ahead. Yeah, that doesn't feel right, does it? Let's hope it's just because I need it to be tighter. Nope, that's not it. Feels grittier than it did before, so that's not fun. I don't know. Yeah, that's the same. All right. Let me turn the camera around. All right. So, I'm probably going to disassemble this again. Try again. Because it's just... it still sounds and feels as gritty. Part of me wonders if maybe the detent ball and detent track are part of it. I'm going to try putting some KPL heavy on the detent ball and detent track. See if maybe that helps a little. Because it's just... I don't know what else to... It's cleaned out. It's freshly lubed. It was a little bit dirty inside, but it wasn't like... I mean, I've seen way dirtier knives that functioned pretty well ultimately. There's the detent ball right there. Let's see if this... Turn a bit more. Oh. It sounds less gritty. Oh, that's not. I don't know, guys. Yeah, I'm just not sure what else to really try other than just to repeat that process and see if I can tweak it some more. So maybe this is going to become a big part of my evening, is taking this apart, putting it back together. Maybe I'll play with that show side of the pivot, see if I adjust tighter or looser on that side, what happens. I mean, it's just, why? Why that, you know? All right. I guess that's my first impressions. That's where we're at the moment. It's about as raw as I can make it. And hopefully, by the time I do the full review, I'll have sorted that out. We shall see. I don't know. But we'll see you on the next one, guys.